What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Now, this video is primarily aimed at ladies because we're talking about the monthly cycle, menstruation, and more specifically, the menstruation cheat sheet that I put together for you to simplify the things I told you when Gemma Atkinson and I did our live Q&As quite some time ago. Now, a lot of you asked us both questions about that afterwards on exactly how to execute the notes or the things I told you. So I created this cheat sheet. It looks like this. Some of you may have seen it already. I've posted it to Instagram quite a few times. I put that together to simplify what happens and give you a tool to stick to your fridge or attach to your training plan, whatever, to allow you to execute certain things in different ways to accommodate your period rather than constantly fighting against your cycle and, you know, the kind of negative feelings you will get from that, whether physical or emotional. So this gives you a practical way to take the things that I said and integrate them into your life and your training plan. What I'm going to do in this video specifically is take you through this bit by bit, because there were so many questions that came from it. Oh, but what is HIT? How do I do? What kind of HIT should I do? This kind of stuff. I'm going to break that down in here, box by box, bit by bit, so you can take notes. So if you can, while you watch this video, go and find that cheat sheet. I've posted it to my Instagram when I put this video up. You can watch this video on YouTube, because I will watch it on YouTube as well whilst you're looking at the cheat sheet on your phone. Take some notes in a notepad or your training diary so you've got the information you need and that you can execute your training plan, your meal plans properly whilst accommodating your period rather than constantly fighting against it. Now, it's important to understand here, this is not a golden rule. Every single one of you is different. Every single one of you is going to have a very different experience throughout your menstrual cycle. Different things may happen at slightly different times, but theoretically, it's going to happen somewhere like this, and I will give you the information you need to adjust your diet based on what's happening at these sorts of times. Okay, so this is going to be a tool to use alongside your training plan and allow you to fluidly move it to accommodate your menstrual cycle rather than constantly fighting against it. So we're going to pick it up and we're going to go in, and what you'll see across the top is I've put together I'll just turn the sound off so my emails don't keep buzzing all the way through. You'll see the four cycles of your, four phases rather, of your monthly cycle. We have menstruation, the actual bleeding part, follicular, ovulation, and luteal. Now, at each point during your cycle, your hormones are going to be slightly different. Now, what I'm going to try not to do is get too hung up on the hormones, because this is where explanations about your cycle become slightly confusing, is people overcomplicate them, whether that's to make themselves sound more intelligent, when all it serves to do is screw up people's ability to learn about what's going on. So I'm going to really slowly glance over what's happening with the hormones. Once we've done that, we're going to move into what's practical. For me, it's not about showing off what I know. It's not about doing anything that's going to allow you to be impressed by me. It's about giving you something you can physically take away and say, right, I can execute this really easily and then improve my life from it. Now, share this. If it's useful, share it to as many people as possible, because the more knowledge this gets out, the better. I don't even care if you credit me with it. A lot of you fitness professionals, I know after the last video, you took this, put your name on it and sent it out. This is one of those occasions that I really don't give a shit. The more people that know about this, the better, because it is going to dramatically improve how females are able to train and diet without causing themselves greater problems. So, pick up your cheat sheet so I can talk you through the boxes. Now, we're going to start at the top. Menstruation. This is the week where you are actually bleeding. Obviously, there's a lot of things going on in your body. It is a refresh. Don't see it as a bad thing. Your body is getting rid of something that it no longer needs, something that is essentially dead and is not needed there anymore. So see it as a fresh new beginning each month. It sounds weird, and of course it's incredibly easy for me to say because I'm a guy, but it happens for a reason. It's supposed to happen. It's supposed to happen to keep you healthy. So as much as it's horribly inconvenient for many of you, I'm sure, again, I cannot sympathize with that. I'm a man. I have it extremely easy in this respect. But don't try to fight it where possible. Don't try to make life harder for yourself. If you can let it happen, and try to accommodate it to make it as easy as possible for your body. Now, how are you going to be feeling around that time? Generally, again, not a golden rule, but low energy, lethargic, and not particularly motivated. This means you're probably not going to want to train. You're probably not going to want to get in the gym, which is totally cool. It's not you being lazy, it's not you being useless, it's not you being crap at executing your program. These are hormones and neurotransmitters that are telling you to feel a certain way because something else is going on that needs to take priority. Understand that? Okay, so it's not you consciously deciding you don't want to do this, you don't want to execute it. Something in your body is saying, yeah, this is cool, but we need to, for our health, to get this out of the way first. So let me do this, then we can get onto that. If you fight it, it can prolong the process, make things a little bit worse. First point, accept that. Now, again, I'm going to skip over the hormones here because I don't want to start complicating things. Generally, around this first week of your cycle, as you are menstruating, all of your hormones will be low. Progesterone will be low. Testosterone and estrogen will be low. Simple as that. That's as much as we're going over because you don't need to know much about them. Now, the more relevant part is what you're going to be feeling with a dietary, from a dietary standpoint during this time. And more specifically, cravings, because generally keeping a fairly steady diet, especially with you females, you're very mentally strong when it comes to dieting in general. You're better than guys with it, is you can keep your diet on point the rest of the month. Around that time, things shift, things change, and it's very important. Make a note of this. Things change for good reason. They are not randomly changing. They are changing because other stuff is happening in your body and they require that change. So what happens during the cycle at certain points is we are going to start to crave carbohydrates. I say we, you, girls, are going to start to crave carbohydrates. Now, do not fight that. I repeat, do not fight that. Do not force yourself through a low-carb diet when you're on your cycle. Do not fight against the cravings to have something a bit sweeter. There is a reason for it, and that reason is, number one, during the first, say, 2 weeks of your cycle, during menstruation, and especially into the follicular phase, you become estrogen dominant towards the follicular phase, and that increases your insulin sensitivity dramatically. Now, again, I'm not going to go into hormones, but insulin is a hormone that helps your body to take sugar, blood sugar, and put it into the muscle. Now, during your cycle, you're up to 40% more insulin sensitive than you are at any other point of the month. So this means that when you eat carbohydrates or any type of food, if there is an elevated blood sugar, your body is clearing that at 40% faster rate than it does at any other point in the month. This means you need more carbohydrates, and your body tells you, your stomach, your body tells your brain, eat more carbs. Okay, that is because you are more insulin sensitive. Second thing is, while you are feeling low, while you are feeling lethargic, while you are feeling down and unmotivated, your body will also ask for an increase in serotonin. Now, serotonin is our calming hormone. It's going to help us to prevent anxious feelings. It's going to help to settle us down. It's going to help us to sleep. Your body knows that this is likely to be low, so it says, well, what do I know helps me to elevate serotonin? You guessed it, carbohydrates. Double signal for carbohydrates. It's telling you to eat them, so don't fight it. Now, this is where you need to be smart about it. Now, is that to say that I'm giving you permission or advising you to then go and eat a load of cake, ice cream, Ben & Jerry's, biscuits, blah, 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 blah? No, that's not what I'm saying, because they are all inflammatory foods. They carry very little nutritional value with a huge caloric value. This means they're probably going to make you fat, but they're not actually going to nourish your body in any way. So then what do? If you have some level of planning with your cycle, you integrate more clean carbohydrates around this time, knowing that it's coming. And by clean carbohydrates, I mean whole foods, potatoes, sweet potatoes, yams, higher carb vegetables. You could do lentils, chickpeas, more nuts, legumes, things like that. Even pasta, rice, some bread. Don't be an ass to yourself. Let yourself have these things, because you purposefully plan them into your diet, or accept, even if you're not dieting formally, but at this time you say, well, I know I need more carbs because this is happening, I need more serotonin, and I'm clearing my blood sugar much, much faster than normal, so there are going to be larger fluctuations. If these things are happening, your body's able to take in more carbs, then give it more carbs. Really simple, because if you don't, and if you continue to try to malnourish yourself with regards to, I say malnourish, I use that as a bit of a strong word. If you're not taking in enough carbohydrates to facilitate that additional clearing of blood glucose because of elevated insulin sensitivity, your body's going to tell you, right, I need more carbs, you know I need more carbs, get it from the fastest source possible. So it tells your brain to crave shit. However, if you prepared for it and you'd say, I know roughly this time of the month, I'm going to need some extra carbohydrates. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace some of my calories, maybe from fats or from protein or whatever, and I'm going to have some more oats. I'm going to have a bit of pasta, a couple of portions of pasta for my day. I'm going to have some more potato. You put in those clean carbs, your body's then getting the carbohydrates it needs. It doesn't then signal to you, I need more carbs, because they're already there. You don't approach that point of craving, and then you don't crash, you don't cheat on your diet, you don't then get the negative mental guilt that comes along with that for many of you. That's not all of you, but many of you. So you see, by planning for it and integrating the right clean carbs, you don't even get the cravings, and you don't end up going off the rails on the other one, causing the inevitable emotional distress. Make sense? So around that time, around menstruation, and especially the week after, you may find, or the time after, you may find that your carbohydrate cravings go through the roof. The reason for that is not you just randomly craving. It is because your body is asking for you to elevate serotonin, push down your stress hormones, and your body is clearing the sugar, the carbohydrates in your blood 40% faster than it does for the rest of the month. Got it? Sweet. All right. Now, let's go down to training methods during your cycle. During the menstrual actual period when you are menstruating, there's a pretty good chance you're not going to want to train. So don't force yourself to train formally like you do. Now, if you want to go in and do some light work, if you want to move, if it helps you mentally, then do it. But don't try to put the hammer down and go absolutely mental constantly, even if you're feeling lethargic. Maybe do some yoga. Maybe do some Pilates that week instead. Maybe go out for a walk. Do something different that makes you feel good, but that accommodates the fact that you are maybe not feeling as good as you usually do. Make sense? Now, we're gonna move over, follicular phase. So this is end of your menstrual cycle, and end of your menstrual cycle, end of your menstruation period, and into the follicular phase. Now, this is where all of those flatlined hormones start to rise. They start to change direction again. So, at this point, what's going to happen, the way you're going to feel, you may find that your energy, your focus, your ability to motivate yourself starts to dramatically increase. Now, what you do at this point, take advantage of that. Yeah, maybe you've had a slower week the week before because you're mid-cycle. Now you're feeling like a lioness. Get into the gym, smash it. There is a damn good chance as well, because at this point, your testosterone, this is the male sex hormone, androgen, that's peaking near enough during this time. This means you're going to be way stronger, way more aggressive, way more assertive than you are at any other point. So you focus on lifting those big weights when you're feeling good after this. Now again, I say it, different for everyone, but generally this is what most of you will feel. So you've had your lethargic week, you did some Pilates, you did some yoga, you chilled out a bit more, did some steps. Next week, your hormones are going flying, your sex drive's probably going to go through the roof, all of these types of things. Use it to your advantage. Train hard, put the hammer down. We drop down to the next box. As I mentioned, estrogen is rising, testosterone is rising, begins to peak. Take advantage of it. We're going to skip over the hormones. Now, again, I've kind of broadly mentioned the diet and how you need to look at it within the first 2 weeks. You're still going to be taking in more carbohydrates at that time. Okay, so continue taking in carbohydrates around that second week, potentially more than you do in the rest of the cycle, but we'll discuss that in a minute. Now, training methods. During this time, I've mentioned the first week, take it easy if needs be. Not all of you are going to feel bad, some of you will take it easy if needs be. But if you are able to train, you're able to train well because of the various things that are happening with insulin, because of the testosterone increases, because of a few other bits and bobs that are going on. Your training during this time should be about performance. It should be about strength. It should be about speed. It should be about power. It should be about explosiveness. So you can do your heavy progressive weight training sessions. 3 to 4 a week is absolutely adequate. On the Live Up plan that I created, for example, that's what we do. 3 to 4 a week, never more than 4. These should be progressive weight training sessions. Whether you do bodybuilding style splits or you do full body style workouts, learn to be strong and really make the most of that during this initial phase. With regards to the cardio you want to be selecting, you want to be doing high intensity workouts. Now this can be things like strongman, circuit training. It can be even like spinning classes, stuff like that. That is high intensity. It can be kettlebell workouts. It can be sprints. You get where I'm going with this. It needs to be those short, sharp, intense, explosive setups that we want to do. Now, it's important to understand that HIIT should not be overused, and it is dramatically overused, especially by kind of commercially successful coaches, a lot of YouTubers, Instagrammers, is they will give you hour-long, HIIT workouts to do every day, or even 20-minute HIIT workouts to do every day. That is a bad idea. It doesn't matter how healthy you are, it's a bad idea. What you should be doing is maybe twice a week, giving yourself a 20-minute HIIT blast. So if you pick one of those modalities I mentioned, sprints, bike sprints, spin class, blah, 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 you want to keep it short and sweet. You want to keep it to about 20 minutes of really explosive hard work on those cardio days, and then stop, rest. The reason being is if you exacerbate the release of cortisol too much, cortisol being your stress hormone, that is it's a dominant hormone over everything else because it's a survival hormone essentially. It's going to start stealing pregnenolone, which then results in your other hormones not being created correctly, which starts a massive cascade of problems. So if you do too much HIT, you are going to elevate your cortisol negatively, so don't. But during this time, during those week after, and maybe 2 weeks after your actual period, you take advantage of the increases in performance, the increases in aggression, the increases in strength, and train hard, heavy weight training sessions and high intensity interval trainings, but keep them short, right? So, after we finished that week, we come into ovulation. So this is when your body's gonna release an egg for fertilization. The way you're going to feel there, generally, fine. You should be okay. You should be well energized. You should be well focused. Your sex drive is probably going to be quite high because obviously, again, remember, there's a reason your body feels anything. If the egg is being released, inevitably your body's going to tell you now's the time to have sex. So you might be running around like a rabbit trying to, fix your need. So enjoy it. Embrace it. Positive aggression I've put there. Again, this needs to be moved into the gym. It can be used with your career. Start to, push yourself forward around these times when these things are happening, when you're feeling a certain way, take advantage of them. Be more productive while you can be. Again, we move into the hormones. What's happening with the hormones? Estrogen and testosterone begin to drop towards the end of this. They're peaking during the middle, but they begin to drop towards the end of this week, so prepare for that. But during that peak, take advantage of it. And progesterone slowly begins to rise. Then, we're going down to nutrition. As progesterone rises and estrogen begins to drop, remember, estrogen made us more insulin sensitive in the first 1 or 2 weeks, less insulin sensitive as it drops towards the end. So estrogen begins to come down in that last sort of week and a half to 2 weeks of your monthly cycle. This means you are now less insulin sensitive. That means you can handle less carbohydrates. So as you move into this second or third week, maybe take out some carbs and put fats in their place. So keep your calories the same, but put fats in the place of carbs, because your body is no longer clearing that blood sugar really, really fast. So you may find that you're taking too many carbohydrates. That's going to have negative effects on your body composition and the way you feel. So at this point, carbs out, fats in. Training. Again, when estrogen, testosterone, everything begin to drop, you're not necessarily going to be peaking at your strength, your focus, all of these types of things. So towards these last 2 weeks, ovulation, luteal, you may want to switch out the HIT, the high intensity interval training, with more steady state cardio. Okay, more steady state cardio. We're talking, gentle bike rides, walking, again, yoga, Pilates, these kind of things that are slightly slower, less intense exercise that will allow you to accommodate what's happening hormonally with your body here. Okay? Keep stress under control all of the time. Keep cortisol under control all of the time throughout all 4 weeks of your cycle. That's super, super important. And finally, luteal phase. This is, again, when you're basically, if the egg had been fertilized, your uterus lining would be thickening, ready to hold a child. If it isn't, if it doesn't get fertilized and you don't get pregnant, obviously the cycle repeats itself. That uterus lining sheds, period starts again. So you see how this cycle rolls around. Now, I know I've talked a lot during this, but I'm going to summarize all of this at the end. So if you want to skip to that, you absolutely can. So at this point, you're going to be tired, possibly much more sensitive to stress as these things are happening. And this is where your fairly common PMS symptoms. Now, that could be anxiety, it could be bad mental feelings, it could, again, the cravings could start around this time as things start to shift about. So prepare for them, plan for them, and execute ahead of time. Don't wait and be reactive to what's happening, because that's when things go wrong. If you are aware of what's happening, even for the first month, when your cycle happens, during each 7 days, maybe keep a daily diary, notes of how you felt on certain days, and that's going to help you to map out a plan long term as to how to manage your diet, how to manage your training. So this month, this is where I had my period, this is what I was feeling on this day, this is what I wanted to eat on this day. Bam, you do that for every day through your period. You can then block it off into something that works perfectly for you to create almost like a menstrual schedule for your training and diet. Make sense? It's a handy thing to try and do if you can. So you'll be tired, stress sensitive, and that's where your PMS symptoms will occur. Why? Estrogen and progesterone and testosterone begin to drop to their lowest point right before you enter your cycle again, your actual period week. So this is what's happening. Again, I've spanned the nutrition across 2 weeks rather than 1 week. We can dial it in week on week. but it's too variable for so many of you. That's why I've spread those across 2-week periods to give you something more simple to shift around. So again, during this week, higher fat intake, lower carb intake. Training, again, focus on weight training. As always, that should be your baseline throughout the entire time, entire month, apart from maybe when you're physically on your period, in which case you may want to back off that and do something slower. And then your cardio, ditch the HIT, go for steady state, okay? So that's me reading through this box by box for you. So it gives you a bit of an explanation of what's in there and what it means to practically apply to your training, to your nutrition, etc., etc. Now I'll summarize that to give you an idea of what's going to happen, but I'm going to summarize it into 2-week blocks. Really simple 2-week blocks. Then if you're still listening, I'll summarize it into a 1-week block just to dial it in a little bit more. So, sorry about the noise behind me. So we're going to take menstruation, your actual week of your period, and then the follicular phase. How should you be eating? Higher carb intake, lower fat intake. Everything else, vegetables and protein, remain pretty much the same. How should you be training? Focusing on your weight training, apart from maybe the few days over your period when maybe you don't want to. Focus on your weight training, and the cardio should be HIT based, high intensity interval training based. Really, really simple. Supplements that can really help you out there. Estro Support, our Estro Support supplement, which should be taken all the way through the month. It's a miracle supplement. Magnesium, incredibly useful for making everything easier throughout this cycle. Omega-3 fish oil, vitamin D3 and vitamin C can really help as well. Then, for the following 2 phases, ovulation and luteal phase, breaking this down into 2 weeks. How should you be eating? Higher fat, lower carb. Really, really simple. Higher fat, lower carb. Then training, weight training remains the same as before. That should just generally be your baseline and progressive, but your cardio changes from HIT to steady state, slower walks, cycles, gentle jogs, things like that. Really simple, okay? So with that being the summary, weeks 1 and 2, eat a lot more carbs, less fat, keep your baseline of protein, vegetables the same. Weeks 3 and 4, increase fat intake, decrease carbohydrate intake, protein and vegetables stay the same. Training in weeks 1 and 2, heavy weight training and high intensity cardio. Weeks 3 and 4, heavy weight training and low intensity cardio. That is how to set your baseline over a 2-week period for your menstrual cycle. Now, if you want to be specific, the only times that would maybe change a little bit is during your period. Again, as I say, reduce the training intensity, do something different, yoga, Pilates, whatever. And again, the very, very final week, you may want to start shifting that as well. But otherwise, it's super, super simple. Your peaks for when you are going to be most carb tolerant, for example, and you should be having the most carbs, are in your follicular phase. So that is going to be the 2nd week after your actual period, your physical period. After that, you're going to want to drop down to low carb pretty quickly. These are generally the most relevant things with regards to your diet. So that is my breakdown of that menstrual cycle cheat sheet. I know for some of you, as I say, I tried to simplify it in the best way I could, but I am aware that some of you may not know the terminology. I don't want to overcomplicate it with loads of hormones because that doesn't really help anyone. The idea behind this is to give you something really practical that you can stick to your fridge or stick in your training manual or whatever you want to do to allow you to adjust things in real time. And it's important to understand there is no golden rule. There is no golden rule as to what you are supposed to do. Each one of you is going to react slightly differently. Each one of your symptoms is going to be vastly different. Timing is going to be vastly different because of other things going on, whether that be the contraceptive pill or these types of things can interact with this natural cycle and mean that some of this is null and void. If that is the case, this is why I suggest for 1 month, challenge yourself on a calendar, write down exactly where your period is, when your period starts, and what you feel nutritionally that day. Are you craving certain types of food, and how are you feeling about training? How did your training end? Did you have a good session? Did you have a bad session? Do that for every single day of the month, and then block it off into your weekly 7-day cycles, your menstruation, your follicular, your ovulation, and then your luteal, to know where you are, and then find the patterns, because that then gives you a really, really easily executable roadmap as to what and how to plan your training, nutrition, diet, performance gains with your menstrual cycle. And I reiterate again, I know it's easy for me to say, I get a lot of shit from people who really don't like the fact that I tried to help you out with this, but my specialist area has been females for a long time, largely born out of a frustration. There is not enough information about these types of things in my specific industry, in the fitness industry. It's important to understand that the less you fight this, the better everything is. Try not to fight it. Understand that it is happening, and it's happening for a very good reason. Your body is trying to regenerate itself, create something. When it doesn't happen, it drops one, picks up another. It's a cycle. It needs to happen. So the harder you fight it, the harder it's going to be for you. Try not to fight it. Try to work with it, accommodate it intelligently. And instead of being reactive to what's happening, i.e. with your diet, eating loads of crap at certain times, try to be proactive and understand why that happens, increase the intake of the right foods ahead of time to prevent it, and hopefully you'll have a much, much better time. But even if you don't want to plan that formally, the understanding of what's happening here will hopefully allow you to not be as reactive in a bad way. So instead of reaching for a massive chocolate cake, maybe you reach for a big bowl of oats, something like that. Cool? Hope it's been of use to you. Share it, share it, share it, share it, share it. Get it out there to as many people as you possibly can, because this can be really, really useful. And as I say, Gemma and I had thousands of people messaging after who tried this for 1 month. 1 month. And apparently it changed everything, which, you know, anecdotally for me, I can't experience it myself. I'm a man. But I've had thousands of clients over the years who I have used this setup with, and this is where it's come from. It's my real world experience, and they say exactly the same thing. So just give it a go. You never know, it may help. Hope it's been of use to you. Peace out.